In the addiction field, what I learned was there's only an 8 to 10% recovery rate. Could you imagine going to a cardiologist that's going to operate on you and he only has an 8 to 10% recovery rate? How quickly would you run out of that office?
Welcome to another episode of Your Business, Your Next Level. Today, I am joined here in studio by Dr. John Giordano. He comes to us with over 35 years of experience in the treatment of addiction, mental health, recovery, and relapses. Dr. Giordano was one-time drug dealer, karate champion, and entrepreneur who started a rehabilitation clinic with actually just $300 and later sold it for $45 million while successfully helping thousands of individuals recover from drugs and alcohol and live happier, healthier, and more successful lives. He also wrote a book, The Kid from the Bronx Who Never Gave Up, amazing book, and his story is being shot, listen to this, potentially as a movie, produced by Sandy Yon from Below Decks and Randy Gold, the executive marketing director at Blue Zone Centers. John, welcome to the show. I am so looking forward to hearing more about your story, and I'm sure that our listeners are sitting on the edge of their seats with that introduction.
Okay. Well, let me add a little thing to it. Also, I am an expert in alternative medicine and psychedelic medicine, and that's what makes the difference in the kind of treatment that we do. And I'm also a chaplain for the North Miami Police Department. So that's another thing that I do because we currently have a faith-based program. I just went into a new venture and putting them back together where they could be successful. They've been around for, I don't know, about almost 12 years, but it was always touch and go with them. They have a great program. They really care about people. And if you want to be successful, you have to make it kind of like a family, but you also have to have boundaries and you have to have structure. And people have to feel like they're part of something, not that they're just there for a paycheck. Because your business is only as good as your weakest link.
100%. Talk to us a little bit about that structure. What have you seen works in terms of building that structure? Obviously, you've managed many businesses in your lifetime. What has worked for you?
Well, first, I identify what are the key personnel, number one. Now, I go into a program that's always already there. If I'm going in, I'm starting a program, people bring their resumes. I look at them and then I throw them away, okay? I want to talk to the person. I want to know, what they don't know. I ask them questions, certain situations that may or not come up, how they would deal with it, how would they handle it. Because everybody sounds good, but they got to be good. So I look at it that way when I'm hiring people. I want to see if they're personable, okay, how they dress, how they carry themselves. It's not just about what they know, it's about how they show up, which I believe is very important in the facility.
Absolutely.
Especially addiction. You need to be in rapport with people.
I was just going to say, what else fits as part of that structure? And as you were talking earlier, the report came to mind because anytime I speak with individuals, if that report isn't there with me, it's probably not going to be there with the clients.
That's right.
Or with the patients, right? And so a lot of individuals I see they're hiring just because it's a need, it's an urgent need, just hire. And then we'll figure out what happens afterwards. But it creates a lot of havoc and a lot of chaos potentially during unnecessary transitions.
Also, how they learn to play with others is another important factor. And some people that run programs, I go in and I change the culture because some people run a program where they put people against each other to make them function better. Not a good idea, number one, because they spend more time doing that, trying to get one up on the other person doing their job. And instead of working together as a team, all the money I made, the way I did my program, it was a team. It wasn't just John Giordano's program. I had to build a team. I built an infrastructure, something that can function even if I'm not there. And that's what you really want to do. It's not one person. A lot of places run like corporations. They don't care about people as far as I'm concerned. It's just a number. Someone's having a hard time in their position that they're in, but they also may be good at something, another position in the company. Maybe they were slotted for the wrong position, Or maybe they just weren't good for the business at all. But you have to talk with people. You have to see where they're at. What are their challenges? What do they need to perform better? Where are the deficiencies? When I go in, I want to know, I interviewed every person and I want to know, how can I make your job better? How can I make your job easier and more efficient? People got to know that you care about them, not that they're just a number.
You're making a very key distinction, a couple of them actually. So on one side, you're talking about building the infrastructure, which is a beautiful delineation between if you have the team that can operate on its own without you as the business owner there, now you truly are an entrepreneur versus just running a business and the buck always stopping with you, which is the definition of a business owner. But then you also said something that's so important as being an entrepreneur and very successful at what you do is empowering the team so that they know that they have your support. Because when that happens, I would be willing to bet you're elevating the throughput and the continuance of those individuals significantly more than if you didn't. Yes, you had the infrastructure, but if you didn't invest time and energy back into them, they might only be there for so long.
When I had my program, I sent my therapists to school to do different types of therapy. Meanwhile, they were working for me. Okay, like if they wanted a trauma, they spend the weekend going to a trauma center. I paid for it because the better they are, the better the treatment is, the better the clients are going to talk about the treatment, and the better the marketing that you'll have, because they'll go out into the community and tell them how good it is. So it's a whole chain of events. And one of the things I find out that people do, I believe, wrong, is that if you have a certain structure and certain rules in an organization, if you bend them for somebody you like, okay, and not for another person, you have a problem because that weakens the whole place. And what happens in drug addiction treatment, you got these techs that take care of the clients and they make sure that they're on property, they make sure they're not doing drugs, and they make sure that they have to be in bed at a certain time and all the different rules and things to have a better outcome. Sometimes they like somebody, they get close with somebody, they like them better than another client, and they let them slide. Well, that weakens everybody down the line. You can't have one rule for one and another rule for another person. So that's where structure comes in.
That is beautiful.
And another thing is training. If you're not on top of training, because just because you train somebody doesn't mean they have the information. So what I do is I train them. Okay. I ask them, okay, you understand everything? You got it? Did you work on it? Yeah. Okay. Now here's a test. Show me what you learned. Real simple. All right. If you can't regurgitate back to me what I taught you, that means it's not on them, it's on me, because it's always on the communicator. If the communicator doesn't communicate properly to somebody, that's on you. Now, some people are maybe incapable of learning. Okay, there are those anomalies, but most of the time it's on the communicator.
I agree. And I love the fact that you're talking about testing them because that also holds them accountable. And they feel at the end of the day, it kind of sounds counterintuitive, but they feel more ownership because now they truly feel like I've got this. It's been vetted with my boss. I'm good versus, I'm taking over this process. They're doing whatever they're doing. And there's always that question of what if I mess up? Now they know that they're following a plan and a training or information that was already vetted. So it makes them that much better.
And if somebody makes a mistake, you don't go beat them up for it. You see why it happened. Where did they go wrong? Did they cause it because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do? And help them to better them. Nobody's perfect. And there's got to be a little bit more rapport with your staff, not just with your clients or your people that come to your business. And another thing I learned, you need to give more than you extract. So if you spend $10 on something, you should give them a $12 worth of whatever product you're doing. Okay? People don't trust anybody, number one. Okay? So in the addiction field, they're sending their son, their daughter, their wife, or their husband to a place they don't know. And one of the things that treatment centers don't do very well, they don't follow up with the referral source. If it's a wife bringing their husband, they want to know what's going on. So what I do is I call them up and say, listen, this is what's happening. They're doing better. Don't worry. If you need me, call me anytime you want. Here's my personal cell phone. because I'm dealing with life and death. I'm not dealing with a product.
Correct.
So in the addiction field, what I learned was there's only an 8 to 10% recovery rate. Could you imagine going to a cardiologist that's going to operate on you and he only has an 8 to 10% recovery rate? How quickly would you run out of that office? So, but now you have to look at why there's only an 8 to 10% recovery rate. And why would somebody want to listen to me? So what I did is I couched myself in a certain way where they want to listen to me. I'm in 80 medical and scientific peer-reviewed journals. I work with scientists and researchers from around 12 universities. And I lecture all over the world about addiction, mental health, alternative medicine, psychedelic medicine. And I have evidence. But what we're not looking at in the addiction field, which is what I lecture about, is it's supposed to be a medical model. It's not. It's a psychological model. Okay? If it were a medical model, you look at what are the co-contributing factors of depression and anxiety, and that's what addicts are trying to medicate. Now, I'm not saying psychological is not important. I'm a trauma guy. I work with guys coming back from war, people that have been molested, raped, police officers that have been in shootings. Yeah, all that stuff's important. Inner child work, abandonment issues, all of this stuff. But there's always a but. Okay? If you have a low thyroid, you could possibly have depression and anxiety. If you have leaky gut syndrome, H. pylori infection, which is a gut issue, you can have depression and anxiety. You have hypoglycemia, you can have depression and anxiety. If you have a closed-end injury, you can have depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and behavioral problems. If you have heavy metal toxicity, okay, you can have neurotransmission interruption, which mimics attention deficit disorder and bipolar disorder. And if you have low testosterone or high testosterone, you can have depression and anxiety. So as you can see, and also your vagus nerve, which is a 2-lane highway from your gut, most people don't realize. I've been talking about this for 20-something years. They used to laugh at me. Now they ask me what I'm talking about. It's almost comical. Now they call it the second brain. Whatever, we just grow brain. But anyway, what this is all about is most of serotonin and dopamine is manufactured in your gut. Most people don't realize this. You have more neurons in your gut than you have in your brain. People don't know that. Now, when you have serotonin and dopamine, it goes up to your vagus nerve, it's deposits it into your brain. Now, you can be genetically predisposed for addiction and mental health issues. It doesn't mean you're going to be an addict, doesn't mean you're going to have these problems, because there's such a thing as epigenetics, which means the social environment can change the gene expression. I work with a Dr. Kenneth Blum. He's the geneticist who found the main addiction gene, which is the DRD2-ALE1 variant gene. So that's the main addiction gene. There's a host of other genes, but we have what is known as the GARS test, Genetic Addiction Risk Score Test, to see if you have a mild, moderate, or severe propensity for addiction. Now, the problem with addicts is they don't eat properly, number one. Number two is they're volume depleted and nutrient deficient because of their diet and what they do to their body. They don't exercise. They don't eat right. They don't take nutrients that they're deficient in. Now, when most people don't know, this is for everybody, if you're taking nutrients like B12, zinc, all these different things, vitamin D3 and magnesium, you don't know if you're methylating them. So you need to take a methylation test. This way you know if you're absorbing the nutrients that you're taking. Now, there's another test that we do. It's called a micronutrient test to see where you're deficient or where you take too much of. Then there's the heavy metal testing to see what metals are in your body. There's also a microbiome test, your gut testing, to see what's going on in the flora in your gut. And then we treat that as well, along with the psychological part. Then you have to teach people life skills, because most addicts, alcoholics, people who have depression and anxiety, they lose those skill sets. They stay home. They don't want to do the things they usually enjoy anymore. They have shame. They have guilt. They beat themselves up unmercifully. Their brains are not functioning properly. So there are so many different co-contributing factors to mental health and addiction that we're not looking at all. What we do in our society is we throw pills at everybody. So we're putting a Band-Aid on it. And what happens? The body assimilates these pills. They no longer work, so we give them more pills. And then we raise the doses. Then we lower the doses. Then we add these pills to fix those pills. No, I'm not against medication. I'm for what works. But if it's not working, we have to look a little bit more in depth on what will work. I do the same thing with business. What works and what doesn't work. And we address the issue. We don't let it linger there for weeks and months. And then everybody gets frustrated. Nobody addresses the issue. And people get disgusted. And then your culture goes down. Your clients don't get the treatment they need. Your marketing goes down. It becomes a chain reaction.
You talked earlier, I love where you're going with this because it almost sounds like you're taking the approach of what integrative medicine is. And in some cases, it's so looked down upon, even by some of the physicians, to your point, because it's easier to just prescribe the pills. And we work with a lot of physicians. Funny enough, the majority of them are all about, hey, what is more out there? And I see it, John, even on our side, we deal with a lot of very complex financial situations where, to your point from earlier, people don't trust anybody. And what I tell people is, I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust the process. Similarly to how you listed out all of the different tests and all of the different things that could be causing an issue. It's the same thing, whether we're talking about medicine or finance or other industries as well. But coming back to what you said, how can we know that there are a lot of very successful business owners, and those are the individuals that are listening to this podcast? How can someone that's super successful, but is maybe dealing with mild depression or anxiety, or they know it's there, but they're sheltering it, they're thinking it's because of the job, it's the workload. What would you recommend would be a good place for them to start to analyze what are they dealing with?
That's a good question. And here's one of the answers. It's education. Okay, we're not educating. I'll give you an example about education. I got surgery about a year ago. Because of the karate and the judo, my neck got really bad and I got some vertebrae and all this other stuff. Anyway, I got 14 screws in my neck. I got 2 rods, all right? And it was a 9-hour surgery. And they put 43 staples in me. So I go to the surgeon and I explain to him that red light therapy, a hyperbaric medicine, helps with inflammation and also helps to heal wounds. Now, they have it in hospitals, hyperbarics, for wound healing and burn victims. It's also used for depression. I lecture about hyperbarics, by the way. So the bottom line is that when I went to the doctor after they were going to take the staples out of my back, he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Why?" He says, "It's healing pretty fast." I said, "Doc, I told you what I'm doing." "Oh, okay." 20 days later, I go back there. He's running around the office, okay, telling everybody, "I've never seen this in 30 years. How can he be healing so fast? This is incredible." He never learned this in school. And this guy's been doing this for 30 years. I said, "Doc, I know you're busy, but you got to look at what's going on in the 21st century, okay? Because if your clients can heal faster and better, you're going to have better outcomes, less problems with infection." Doctors don't learn. They all learn from the cookbook, and then they have different personalities that are involved. But there are things out there that really work. Hyperbarics, I work with Dr. Paul Harch. He's a neuroscientist at a university. He's a pioneer in hyperbaric medicine, which works for TBI cases, traumatic brain injury cases. It works for people that have post-acute withdrawal syndrome. I mean, it's wild. And then I also work with a Dr. Deborah Mash. She's another neuroscientist from the University Miami School of Medicine. She was the head of the Brain Bank and the Alzheimer's Foundation. She just retired from there to work full throttle on a substance called ibogaine. Now, ibogaine is a Schedule I drug, which is a joke. Most people don't know what a Schedule I drug is. I'll tell you what it is. It means you have no medical value and it's highly addictive. I promise you, this plant medicine is definitely not highly addictive because you spend 8 to 12 hours in a dream state in your traumas. I don't think you want to hang out there. It's like hanging out with hell, okay? And it detoxes people with opioids and opiates and alcohol and cocaine and all this stuff in 24 hours.
That's impressive.
So it's amazing. I've seen it. I've worked 14 years in the island of St. Kitts where we had people there. And they come in, really stoned, and they're on what is called a nod. They're like this. They come out like this, like they never used the drug. Now, the pushback is, well, they got heart problems with that. You only have problems if you don't do it medically. Number one. What we did is we had a 24-hour heart monitor on them, not an EKG, which is only, as you know, a snapshot. We had a 24-hour heart monitor to see how their heart was functioning. We did a toxicology test because certain drugs can interfere with this drug. We checked their kidneys, we checked their liver, and we sent them to St. Kitts. We repeated the test, and then what we did is I did some integration therapy with them so they have an intent going in, what they want to accomplish. We put an IV in their arm in case there's any kind of an event. We put a heart monitor on them to monitor them, put eye shades and a headset on them with music to keep them in a containment field. We gave them a test dose, see how they tolerate it. 45 minutes later, if they tolerate it well, we put them with a full dose. And depending if they're a fast metabolizer or a slow metabolizer, they were out for 8 to 12 hours. Then they would come out of that journey, totally detoxed, very minimal residual. And I would do therapy with them again to look at what they saw on their journey, because it is a psychedelic, okay, and how it relates to their life. And then we would suggest to them to go to treatment to work on these behaviors that they developed over time. Pharmaceutical companies don't want this, okay? They want to keep shoving people on another opioid, which is Suboxone. Okay, I did the Anna Nicole case with Wolf Bliss from CNN and with methadone. I don't know if you remember the Anna Nicole case with the Playboy Bunny who
Vaguely,
died
yes.
from a and her son died of a methadone overdose. And I said, it's really strange that the lawyer was involved in both of these situations, and he had to know that you can't drink, you can't do certain SSRIs, okay, with methadone. You can't do Valium or any of that stuff which she was taking. And what she did is she got a situation where she could no longer breathe, and she died. People don't know about these medications. They have serious side effects and even death.
So you were mentioning earlier, I totally agree with you. It is about the education. How can people, what is the best way for an individual that wants to learn more? By the way, I love the hyperbaric chamber. Would love to know what other biohacks are you into?
Well, I have one in my home. I have a hyperbaric chamber. I have a red light therapy bed. I have a cold plunge, which is also excellent. Okay, I have an infrared sauna. I have a massage room and a steam room. So I look at life like this. If you don't have your health, you don't have your wealth. And that's number one. I got another little quick story, if you don't mind. I put testosterone in my thigh. I cleaned it well, did everything great. I've been doing that. All of a sudden, I got cellulite. I went to the hospital 5 times, different antibiotics. They did different testing, all this stuff. And I kept saying, you got to open this up and you got to clean it out. It's probably encapsulated. That's why it keeps coming back after 3 or 4 weeks. No, don't worry, Mr. J. All right. Finally, went to a doctor and I found out that I got stage 3 kidney disease. Stage 3 kidney disease comes also because I was dehydrated and because of all the antibiotics that weren't good for the kidney. Because there are antibiotics you can take. It doesn't go through the kidney, it goes through the liver. So my GFR level was 37 and my creatinine level was 1.82. So I told the doctor, I'm going to beat this. He said, well, okay, well, let's see what happens. I just went to the doctor. My GFR is now 55. That's only after a month. And my creatinine level went to 1.33, which is almost normal.
What did the doctor say?
He can't believe it. How did you do this? I said, doctor, I know you train in a certain discipline, but there are other disciplines that do work. They don't have tons of research on them. Well, because you need an end game when you have research. What's your end game? It's usually making money. So I know through trial and all the people I know that do these different, red light therapy works for inflammation. Infrared works for detoxification and healing. Hyperbarics works for a number of things that are not on the 11 things that it's supposed to be built for. And the insurance companies, like with addiction, they give you 30 days of inpatient, and then they shove you to other outpatient, the PHP, and all this stuff. They need 60 to 90 days inpatient. They're running for 10 years, 20 years, 5 years of doing opioids and opiates and different drugs. Their brain is now not functioning properly. The brain needs time to heal. And there is a program that can show the efficacy of longer treatment, which is called the PRN, for Physicians Referral Network. This is a program, and it's called Chance up in Gainesville, that doctors that use drugs or get caught or turn themselves in, they go to this program for 90 days inpatient and 5 years with random drug testing. They have a 90% success rate. Now the pushback is, well, they don't want to lose their license. How about if we have 15% success rate? I'll take 5%. That's millions of people. Now these opioids that they're giving everybody, and I don't say that they're for certain people, but not for everyone. Nothing's for everyone. All right. So they're trying to back themselves out of the opiate crisis. Now, history has a tendency to repeat itself. In the early 1900s, we had an opium epidemic from the Chinese that were working on the railroads, right? I don't know if you know about that. All right. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to fix it. You know how they fixed it? Heroin. Now, we all know how heroin works. It's almost comical. This is all about money. This is not about patient care.
When you're talking about that, it reminds me of so many children that have been diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. And instead of saying, okay, maybe this child, yes, they might be a little more hyperactive, but let's look at their gut. Let's look at their insufficiency in terms of nutrients and all of the things that you mentioned previously that could be triggering that. And saying, if we fix that, we don't have to put these children on medication just to make them, following sheep. Just put them on something, because then they'll be quiet and they'll be good and they won't say anything. And it hurts because they're children. And now they have a stigma associated with them. It's on the record. It's forever going to be on the record. And we're still not solving the problem. And to your point, it seems like it's the same thing with adults as well. But adults actually have the opportunity to say, okay, before I do this, are there different ways in which I can treat things?
But they don't want to pay for that. See, now I have my own theories about this. Why would an insurance company keep paying money for a system that's been documented that doesn't work? Now, the only thing I can think about is they want addicts to die, because now they're off their rolls. They don't go to the ER. They don't drain the medical system. And why else would you do that? It's like going on to a light switch that's supposed to turn on the light, and you hit the switch and nothing happens, and you stand there all day doing the same thing. What are we doing? Our medical system is totally broken. Doctors are not being trained properly. There's a shortage on doctors, a lot of them moving out of the country. Nurse practitioners are taking over the job. Some of them are not as educated as they need to be. What are we doing as a society? So hospitals are business. They're all businesses, but they don't run them like a good business. They got lousy outcomes.
They're run for profit. They're not necessarily run for how do we save these people and give them longevity.
Well, I know the Hippocratic Oath is do no harm. I think we're doing a lot of harm.
Well, don't get me started. It's the same thing on the financial side when people say, I get tickled at this all the time. Well, but my financial advisor is a fiduciary. I'm like, it's kind of like somebody saying, you go into a doctor and the doctor's saying, you can trust me because I took the Socratic Oath, right? It's like, you can trust me because I'm a fiduciary. So by law, I have to do the right thing for you. It's like, do you want to work with that person? Because people that act in integrity are not going to hide behind a title. They're going to tell you, just like we tell our clients, I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to look at the numbers. Because if things aren't done in your best interest, you're going to know. You will
numbers
know.
Don't
and
lie.
People
do.
Numbers don't lie. Exactly. So true. I have to tell you, John, a lot of the things that you talked, a lot of the biohacks I absolutely love. Cold plunges have become one of my favorite things to do. And my family and friends are like, you're out of your mind. I'm like, no, because you have no idea how good you feel after that. And you go from there into an infrared sauna. I can be in there for a whole hour and have no issues. And it's amazing.
Well, you have NAD that people need. That's a coenzyme, the fuel engine for every cell in your body. And as you get older, you lose NAD, which is very important. If you have injuries, you can get, and which they think they took off the market, BPC 157 and TP 500 that actually heal tendon issues, tissues. It's amazing. They don't want stuff that works. Okay. And what's funny is, they caused this problem, that problem. Have you ever looked at the counterindications for Zoloft or Prozac how many people committed suicide, what could go wrong. I mean, it's almost comical, all right? What are we doing? I mean, alcohol's okay, all right, because you make money from it, all right? All these things are okay, but other things that really help are not okay.
That's so true.
It's like a double standard.
Where do we send people, John, to get more educated?
They can go to my podcast. It's called How to Beat Your Addictions and Live a Quality Life. They can go to my website, John, the letter J, Giordano.com, and that's the initial J. And they can see I think I have about 39 papers. And for doctors and researchers, they can go what is known as ResearchGate. I don't know if you're familiar with ResearchGate. It's a platform for peer-reviewed journals, medical journals from all over the world. Just type my name in, and you'll see me in about 80, 85 journals.
Love that. All right. So we will include those resources in the notes. That way individuals can easily click on them.
And I also like them to know my book, The Kid from the South Bronx Who Never Gave Up. You want to see how I kept going no matter what? Get the book. It's on audio. It's on Kindle, it's an ebook, any kind of book you want. Motivate people.
Here's what I would propose. We are already at time, and I would have loved for us to dive into the book. How about we do a 2.0 to talk specifically about the book, especially since it's being looked at as a potential movie?
Yeah.
Yes. Would you be open to that? Wonderful. All right. Well, before we...
And for people that know, part of the book is my uncle was a hitman, and he threw my wedding when I was 20. And the caterer insulted him, so he killed him. So I had to leave town real quick. That's part of the book. You'll see a lot of stuff in there.
So if you're listening to this, the point is get the book. And on the next episode, we will talk more about the book and maybe what's even behind the scenes of the book, because we'll have John with us. John, in the meantime, before we conclude today, are there any parting thoughts that you would like to leave with the audience? We did not plan it this way, and it was just a beautiful journey of how people can think differently about medicine, not even just addictions, but just mental awareness and acuity and just doing better with life in general.
Can I read a little paragraph? Take a minute, 30 seconds?
Go for it.
There is one thing in this world, one special lesson, the constant that has guided me through the turbulent waters of life. Most people know this infinite rule, but they ignore it or simply do not follow their life lessons. That is, no matter what, no matter the circumstances, the obstacles, the people that get in our way, or things that slow us down, follow this one simple rule. Never give up on your dreams, never let go of your passions, and especially never give up on yourself or a God of your understanding. My name is John Giordano, and I'm a recovering addict who turned $300 into $45 million. I was blessed to become extremely successful, and I would like to share my story with you. This is how my life was transformed and how I was saved from falling into the abyss of hell by following this one rule. I learned how to have a life worth living.
That is so beautiful. We should have introduced with that, but then we wouldn't have talked about all of the medical stuff that was so important. So we'll keep that for next time. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for reading it. And as you're listening to this, if you have any questions at all, obviously you'll have all the resources where you can get in touch with Dr. Giordano. If you want a personal introduction, just reach out to us. We would be more than happy to do so. Obviously, he's very open to discussions. And until next time, stay tuned for your next episode of Your Business, Your Next Level.
Thank you for joining us on Your Business, Your Next Level podcast, where it is all about helping you make more, keep more, and elevating your business to the next level. To learn more, make sure you head over to www.podcast.extelstra.com and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Again, that's podcast.extelstra.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.